Hello everyone, welcome back. Happy Saturday. Today we're going to be doing a video that sorry, my phone is tilted. Today we're going to be doing a video that I have been contemplating doing for a while now. I just haven't actually gotten around to it until right now. I've been trying to video plan for the last day or so because I need to bulk film some stuff so that way I can edit it and get the stuff out. So this is one of the videos that I am planning to do, which is all of the series that I can recall that I have started and want to finish and actually intend to finish. There are a few series that I have started, but I really don't anticipate continuing on with the series at all. But these are ones that I actually do want to at some point, some sooner than others. But series that I do want to finish at some point. I'm also going to film a video about all the series I want to start that I'm excited to get to. And a lot of those will be because it's authors that have multiple series. So I'll want to finish the current series I'm in to move on to their next series, which I talk about in videos previously if you watch any of my other stuff. But today's just going to be series that I have already started. I'm going to show, if I have the physical copy of the book, I'm going to show the book that I most recently read in that series, where I'm at, with a couple exceptions. These aren't in any particular order. Some of these series are old as well. I started them years ago and never finished them, or I'm just slowly working my way through them. Anyway, let's just get into it. The first series I have is the Element series by Brittany C. Cherry. So this is, I only ever read the first book. This is book 2, The Fire Between High and Low, which I don't ever hear anyone talking about. Everyone always talks about book 3, The Silent Waters, and book 4, The Gravity of Us. I do have 2 and 3, or book 3 as well. I do not have a copy of The Gravity of Us, and the indie cover, in these covers, I don't think it's available anymore. So that'll be interesting trying to find a version of that. But I did read the first one and I really enjoyed it. They aren't really, it's a series, but they're not really connected as far as I know. There's no overlap of characters or story or anything. That is a series I do eventually want to finish. Next one we have is a fairly new series. Now this book is one of the exceptions. I have not read this book yet. That is the Sugarland Creek series by Brooke Montgomery. This is the first book, Here With Me. I have read the novella, which is Come With Me, I believe. And the next book, Stay With Me, is coming out in a couple months. And that is the one I am dying for. There is a pregnancy trope in it, but she's pregnant and it's not his kid. And I'm just I cannot wait for that one. But I do need to read this one first. I read the novella, really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. These are all small town. This one is a really big age gap. She is a horse trainer and it's her best friend's, her ex-boyfriend's dad is what it is. And I cannot wait. Brooke Montgomery, I believe, is part of Kennedy Fox. I think there was 2 of them that write together. She also writes under Brooke Cumberland, I believe. But this is her new, independently written series that I'm really, really excited to dive into fully because I really did enjoy the novella. Next, we have a series that I've started recently, and that is the Wrecked series by Catherine Cowles. This is book 1, Reckless Memories. This is the only book in this series I've read so far, but I do own all of her series except for one book in one of the later series. So I do really want to finish this series. Audible had, when they had their sale last month, they did have the bind up of the first 3 books on audiobook. So I grabbed that so I can actually listen to the next 2 in this series. But these are small towns, romantic suspense novels. I think this is what her, I believe, second series she wrote. The first one being Sutter Lake, which I did read last year and I really enjoyed it. I listened to it on Hoopla. And there a lot, this one, from what I can tell, the first book anyway, is lighter on the suspense part of it. But I really enjoy her writing and I love the romantic suspense parts of it. And I never used to really be into small town. Sorry, my dog is moving the chair. Okay. I never really used to be into small town, but I have been getting into it lately, which is surprising to me because I used to feel I used to like the dark. I still do love my dark romance. That is my favorite thing. But I used to feel small town was kind of boring and not for me. But reading these authors that add this suspense element to it make it a lot more engaging and gripping. I have to sneeze and it won't come out. So if I sound nasally, that's why. Next, in that same small town genre, we have the Gold Rush Ranch series by L.C. Silver. This is actually the novella out of the gate. Like with the Sugarland Creek series, this I read the novella. I have not yet read the first book in the series. Her Chestnut Springs series is probably more famous and the one that got picked up by publishers. But this is her first series that I want to read. I'm one of those people that, like, if I am not already involved in like a later series, like I want to read their backlist and then build up to the new stuff. So I do want to read Gold Rush Ranch first. It's also about horse racing, which is what I grew up reading and loving. I used to read the Thoroughbred series by Joanna Campbell, I believe is her name. And that was a whole series surrounding thoroughbred horse racing and just anything horses and equestrian, especially like as an adult, finding this stuff is just like making me so excited because it's still my one of my favorite things to read about. And the fact that this is adult romance makes it even better. But I really, really love this novella. I believe I gave it, if not 4 stars, definitely, if not 5 stars, at least 4.5, 4. But this is I believe the grandparents. I think this is book. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I believe this is book 1.5. Technically, you have to read it. You should read it after the first book. But I read it first because it's the one I had on hand before I got physical copies of the other books. So I did read this one first. And this is the story of I want to say the grandparents of the kids in the main series. But it was still really adorable. I loved it so much. So now at least, when I go into reading, I think Off to the Races is the first book. Like I'll have a little bit of backstory on the grandparents. Next, we have a series that I am currently reading, and that is the Fallen Men series by Gianna Darling. I am late to the train on this one, as usual, because I'm one of those people that, like, when I know or I feel like I'm really going to devour and obsess and love a series, I will not read it. I don't know why. I don't think it's that I'm intimidated by it. I don't know. I just want to savor it, and like I don't want the experience to be over, so I just end up not reading it at all. But now what I was gonna do was try to read this before Caution to the Wind came out, but there is very little notice about that. I think she had about a week or so notice when she said that Caution to the Wind was going to be released, and I was like, that is not enough time for me to read an entire series, especially as you get later in the books. I think there's 6 books in this series. The later you get, the longer they get. So I didn't want to binge. I wanted to savor. So I ended up just starting this is the first book, Lessons in Corruption. I did read the prequel novella, which was, I believe, Cyclops and Talen's story. I did read that. And then I do have the other novellas like downloaded on my Kindle to read in between when they're supposed to be. So I am currently in the middle of reading Lessons in Corruption. I'm actually in the very beginning of it. I have been currently reading Christmas books and Christmas novellas for a different reading vlog. So that's been kind of taking up a majority of my like free reading time. But I do thoroughly intend to devour this series probably first thing in the coming year, or as soon as I'm done with reading the books that I have to read for my Christmas vlog, which I think there's about 2.5 of those left to go. So we'll see how long it takes me to get through those when I can dive back into this series. But this will definitely be my priority the first thing next year. Oh, and if you guys don't know what Fallen Men is about, it's a motorcycle club, the Fallen Men MC series. And I have been rewatching, I should say, my friend's been watching for the first time, Sons of Anarchy, which I loved. I love my MC. I haven't read any in a little while, so it's fun to finally get back into that kind of world. Next we have a series, which is again the first series for this author. Her second series is more popular, and that is the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. This is the first book, Throttled. There are 4 books in the series. I do have Collided, but I only read the first one so far. I read this. I started reading this. I watched Gran Turismo when it came out, and I saw it in theaters twice. Was obsessed with it. I wanted to read some like racing stuff, so I was googling like race books about car racing. A lot of it is Formula One, which is what this is. And this is her first series. So you guys, most people probably, not you guys, but most people are probably more familiar with her Dreamland Billionaires series, which is the fine print, Terms and Conditions, and The Final Offer. There's that trilogy. I do want to read that as well. But again, I'm reading this series first. So yeah, I got 3 more of those that to go in this. But this, I believe, is on Hoopla. The first 3 books, I believe, of the series are on Hoopla. And the 4th one, I don't think has an audio yet that I'm aware of. Okay, next is another series that I started this year. It's actually a quartet, and that is the Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa. This is the first book, Pestilence. I read this for October, for like spooky season. So this one it's the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The apocalypse is underway, and each of the horsemen is taking their turn riding throughout the world, spreading their whatever they have. Like Pestilence is spreading his plague. And then war will come, and then famine comes, and then death is the final one to ride. So you get each of the horsemen books. And this one was a little bit slower to me. It was just pretty much a road trip romance. But you get little nuggets of like the rest of his brothers, I guess you could say. And I'm actually intrigued enough I want to continue with the rest of the series just to see how it all plays out. And I want to know what kind of love interest they each find, because Pestilence finds his love interest is a woman who tries to kill him and actually nearly succeeds at it. Or she does actually succeed, but because he's a horseman of the apocalypse, he can't actually die. I'm intrigued enough to read the rest of the series. Next, we have a series that I really like. I gave the first book 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of the year, I believe, and that is the Parallel series by Elle O'Rourke, who is actually Elizabeth O'Rourke. And this is the first book. So there's actually 4 books, but they're couples. Like there's 2 books per there's 2 books per couple. So Parallel is the first book, and then Intersect is book 2, and then a different couple is book 3 and book 4. So I do have the first 2 books. But I know Elizabeth has said that her favorite couple is the second part of the series. So this is a time travel series. It's not really made. The first book is very, very good. Our heroine has been having, since she was a child, like she has like memories or like dreams of this other life with this guy named Nick, who's supposedly her husband. And eventually after a while, she like just stops having it, or like at least stops telling people about them. And now she's engaged to be married and checking out like wedding venue places, and things start triggering like memories, these same memories that she had as she was a child. And one of them actually causes her to pass out. And when she's in the hospital, she learns that she discovers that her doctor is this guy, Nick, who she always had this connection with and always like knew, like she knew him somehow, like he was her husband. They had a life together in the past. And it kind of unravels like what is happening there, what happened. And you get some answers, but not complete answers by the end of this. So you definitely need to like read book 2 to get the full understanding. But I need to read book 2. This book was amazing. I flew through it, and I never picked up book 2 yet, which I desperately need to do. Okay, I gotta do a couple of these that I don't have physically because I'm gonna forget about them. The next one is going to be the Gypsy Brothers by Lily St. Germain. So I read Cartel this past year. And the Gypsy Brothers is actually a spin-off of that trilogy because it's one of the characters, something horrific happens to her in the 3rd book, I believe, and the events of that are now the spin-off series of hers where she's getting revenge for what happened to her. So I did read the first 2 books. They're novellas. There's 7 of them, I want to say, because there's 6 brothers and then the father. So yeah, I read the first 2, so I need to read the rest of the series. And they're really quick, they're short, but oh my god, they're packed with just chaos and insanity. And like, so actively this girl is getting revenge by killing off all these men that have hurt her in her life. And the way they die, I'm just like, the creativity, I just gotta say, is so interesting. But it's a really interesting and fascinating series. But I would definitely recommend reading, if you have any interest in it, reading Cartel first by Lily St. Germain, because you get the backstory you need for this series, I believe. I mean, you could probably read it separate, but just you have a better understanding of the characters and the events surrounding what's going on. I feel like you get more of an emotional connection if you would read the first trilogy first. It is very dark, though. Be wary of that going in. Check triggers. I don't know if it's the second or the third book. I read them back to back, but like, though the third book especially has dark, really awful things that happen, so just really definitely look at triggers before going in. Another series I actually started listening to on Hoopla. They only had the first book, but I was intrigued enough that I want to try to get the other ones in the series, and that's the Devil series, again by Elizabeth O'Rourke. I don't know how they're all interconnected exactly, but I really enjoyed the first one. He was a like a Hollywood, I guess he's a plastic surgeon, I want to say, and she is his like she's supposed to be his like temporary assistant secretary. He is kind of a grump. He's definitely a grump. He's not kind of, he definitely is a grump, but she's kind of begrudgingly taking this position in, but she's more like a sunshine than he is, but she is not afraid to tell him, like, you will not treat me the way and talk to me like this, because that is not okay. It's really, and it wasn't even like a whole lot, like normally I love the romantic suspense and those kind of things will be what draws me into a book. This one was just, I just enjoyed their story and their romance like a lot, so I'm very curious to read the rest of the books in this series. I don't know how many there are. I want to say at least 4, possibly more than that. But yeah, I would definitely want to get to this series. Okay, the next series, I actually used to have a physical copy of this, but I unhauled it recently, and that is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This is the Blue Alien series. Now, all of these, I believe all of them, or vast majority of them, are on Hoopla. They're very short, like 5-6 hour audiobooks. I listened to one on a whim at work. Like I was aware of this series. I had the first one to read, and then I was just like, I want something quick and easy to listen to while I'm at work. And I put this on and was very surprised by how much I actually enjoyed it. So I don't know how, like, because there's like 20 books in this series, so I don't think I'll actively binge it. But I do want to continue on with the series, because the first book you definitely get hints of the couples in future books, and there was a couple of them where I was like, oh, like I really want to get their story. So I definitely will read at least like the beginning first like few books, but we'll see how further along I get with that series. Okay, I think that was, oh no, so the last one I don't have physical copy of is the Underworld series by Sophie Lark. I don't know if this was her first series. I want to say it is, but this one is mafia. It's Russian mafia. I read the first book. What was the first book? Ivan, I believe, was the first book. I read that. It's been a while now. I don't know if it's been a year, more than a year perhaps. I still have the whole box set is on my Kindle. I think it was free at one point, or like 99 cents, so I bought the whole thing. But I've only read the first one so far. I think there's 6 books in that series. But I do know, or I'm fairly certain, that there are characters in her Underworld series that show up. I don't know if it's Brutal Birthright, but they definitely show up in one of her other series. So yeah, I want to catch up with, again, I only read Ivan. So I want to catch up with that series again at some point too. Okay, the rest of these I all have physically. I just wanted to get those ones out of the way because I was going to forget. The next series I need to catch up with is the Boston Underworld series, I think is what it's called, by A. Zevarelli. I have read up to book 3, which is Ghost. Now, these books I just recently found out actually got brand new covers, and I only have up to book 4 in these covers. And so I'm hoping that if I can get used copies on Amazon of I don't remember what's Thief, I think is the 5th book. Thief and Connor are the last 2 I need. So I'm hoping if I get like a used copy, they'll be in this cover, because I think the new covers just got changed within like the past like week or so. So I'm really hoping I can get my hands on them before they disappear. And I'm hesitant to just order straight from Amazon, because I don't know how long, if they if they will go through what stock they have first and then start shipping out the new covers, or how that works. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is again, this one is Russian mafia, but the series in general surrounds the Irish mafia. And this one is, I don't want to give away too much about this particular book because it's the story of the best friend from the first book. You find out that she disappears, and this is them where she's been, because I believe it overlaps with the first book, if I'm not mistaken. It overlaps for like a majority of the book, and then it goes in its own direction. I'm pretty sure. So I definitely want to get to this one. I got to book 3, so I've been steadily kind of going through them, but just not completely binging them. And then another mafia series that I am still in the middle of is the Cur Chronicles by Cur Riley. This is book 3, Twisted Pride, which is where I stopped, which is not where I stopped, but this is the last book I read. I believe there are 3 more after this, if I'm not mistaken, but they are on Hoopla. I did listen to these on audio. This is the last one I actually physically have because I like these covers, and you can't find these covers anymore. They've been replaced a while ago at this point. So I'm definitely going to listen to the rest of them on audio at some point, because I do want to go back and read her Born in Blood series, which I think is the first. I think that's the series that you're supposed to read before this one, but I started with this series. So that's why I'm like, normally I read in order, like I said, but this is one of the exceptions where I started with the series first and then realized you have to read the other series. And I was like, oh, oops. So I'm going to finish this one and then go back and read the rest of it. Here's another series that I started a few years ago and haven't read any more since. I did try to reread the first book in the series to get more momentum to continue reading the series, because there are like 20 books in the series again. And that is the Black Dger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward. I read books 1 and 2. This is book 2, Lover Eternal. But I read these 2 books like years ago. I can't even tell you. It feels like a long time ago. It's probably more like 2 years ago. And then last year I tried to reread book 1 to hopefully get momentum to read more in the series, because I do own all of them. I just need to just get to it and start reading them is what I need to do. But this is paranormal romance, vampires. There's like some kind of society of like vampire hunters, and then of course you have their like human mates that they end up finding. I know later on down the line the whole world gets more complicated and complex, but so far the beginning books, you're just getting a book of each of the brothers, and like there is an overarching storyline, but like you get each of the brothers' romances. So I really need to get back into this. Like I do, and I actually believe the first 6 books might actually have audios on Hoopla, so maybe that's my way to go. Since I've been on an audio kick lately, I may just have to do that and listen and read at the same time. That might be the way to get back into it. The last few are a couple historicals. I have a lot of historical romances that... Oh, I missed one. Hold on. I just forgot one. I forgot this was actually a series. Anyway, the first historical romance series I want to read is actually this. It used to be called Highland Pleasures, but I actually think it's now called the McKenzies and McBride series by Jennifer Ashley. The first book is The Madness of Lord Eden Mackenzie, which is the one I read and absolutely adored and loved it. And then you get his brothers all get a book as well after that. So I do have a couple of them. I don't have the whole series. I think there's like 12 books in the series. So I do want to read the rest of the brothers, and then we'll see who gets a book later on if I'm interested or not to continue with the series. But I definitely want to read all of the brothers in this series. The next one we have is one I binged the beginning of this year. Was it the beginning of this year or last year? I can't remember now when I read this series, but that is the Scoundrels of St. James series by Lorraine Heath. This is book 3, Surrender to the Devil. If I had these in the correct order, this should be book 3. The only reason I stopped, I actually binge listened to these while I was redoing this library, actually. And I was trying to read books that that I physically had on my shelves, and I only had books 1 through 3 of this series. I have book 4, I believe now, but I still need the book 5. So I'm like listening to it as I'm reading along with it. And this series is so good. I discovered that Lorraine Heath is one of my favorite historical romance authors. This is actually a spinoff, not spoof, but like a retelling of Oliver Twist. So you get each of the characters from Oliver Twist, and they get their own book. And I just think of Oliver and Company for some reason, which is it's an animated version of Oliver Twist, but that's just my brain immediately goes to, like, they talk about Dger in this, and that's immediately I just think of the dog from Oliver and Company, Dger. I just can't help it. But I really loved this series a lot. I definitely need to get back into it. And then the final book is another series that's going to take me a really long time to get through, but I've gotten through a decent chunk of it so far. And that is the Outlander series by Dana Gabaldon. I grabbed this because it was easier to grab than my mass market, but it's also harder to hold because it is a big, heavy hardcover. This is book 5, The Fiery Cross. I read about 450 pages of this before putting it down, and I haven't picked it up since, which has probably been about a year or two. I still do want to read this series because when I actually actively start reading this, I will devour it. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Voyager or Drums of Autumn, that I literally laid in bed all day and read this book until it was so close to my face I couldn't see the words anymore, because it was that good. So I definitely want to finish this series. I have not even finished watching the television show because I don't have Stars. I used to get the trial of Stars just to binge Outlander and then cancel it. I don't know. At this point, I'll probably end up watching the show before I end up finishing the books, because this is book 5 and there is 9 books. They are long. They are chunky. They are chock full of small print. But I love reading them so much. So eventually I do plan on, had a moment a month or so ago where I kept staring at it and I was like, I want to pick it up and read it. But I had a whole bunch of other stuff I wanted to read. I think it was in October. I had to read spooky books for October, and I was like, I just want to read Outlander. Just let me pick it up. And after October happened, I never picked it up. I think because it would take me so long to read that I wouldn't read anything else. And that's just how I am. I feel like I have other books that I could read however many books in the time it would take me to read this one. So that's just where my brain goes sometimes. I don't know. But I do eventually want to finish this series because I really do love it. So yeah, that's all of the series that I can remember that I have started and still need to finish. I didn't really count my YA stuff. I think I did the video this a few years ago where I was like, oh, I have to finish reading the Carrie Maniscalco Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I never read book 4. But that's only one book that I haven't finished reading. I haven't finished reading the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. I have to read book 3. I didn't really count those this time because those are book series I want to finish. It's just not high on my priority list, and I don't know if I'll actually get to them. All the books I mentioned today, the series I mentioned today, are higher on my priority list, and more than likely they're most likely to actually get read and finished. We'll just put it that way. So that's going to be it for me today, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!